So
Half.
there's so much tension, racial divide. There is a series out right now, Lovecraft Country.
Okay.
Off the chain. You started watching it, right?
No, I finished it.
Oh my! You finished it.
It's real good. It's real good.
For y'all that haven't viewed, tap in Lovecraft Country. We ain't even getting sponsored by them, but we gotta push this. This series is on
HBO.
HBO. It has a few star-studded cast people in there.
Yep, it has
my boy. What's his name? Williams from The Wire. What's his name?
It has what's her name? Jesse Smollett's sister in it.
Yep. And what's the guy from The Wire?
Michael Williams. Michael K. Williams.
Michael K. Williams. So this series right here, you guys, it deals with magic, monsters, but the whole, let's say, the glue to it or the whole undertone is racism. Well, right? Or it goes back into the. Let me say this. It goes back into those times and it speaks to those.
It's a
life.
It's a period piece.
A period of time.
So they're in the
I want to say that's 40s? Like the 40s. Yeah, I want to say the
40s, something like that.
The 40s. Yeah.
It's set in the 40s, and I can look it up real quick. Yep. I don't even know why we're speculating. But it's set in those times. It starts off in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I would say the glue to the show is the historical events that they go through.
Yeah.
So they're telling this. They're telling a lot of historical story things about this young man who is has come back home from the army. His uncle is a.
Don't give him too much.
No. But I'm just letting you know his uncle is a author. His father is an author. They love to read books. That is their passion. They print a newspaper that is called the Negro Guide or something like that, where the uncle goes around and travels and maps out the routes, the safe routes for black people to go across the country. And safe havens and places that they can stop and eat and sleep for the night and stuff like that. So he maps that out and he publishes and he updates it on a monthly basis or something to that effect. So there's a lot they go through. That's like the backdrop to the story that they're telling. But they go through a lot of, for us, for black people, different historical events.
But hold on. Besides that, what they also go through from a society standpoint is a lot of social norms now that were taboo or weren't really looked at a particular way. And I'm gonna say this from this standpoint: women having a certain role. They go those dynamics of a woman leading that has more expertise in the area, but has to play the back burner because of husband. They go through the homosexuality. And for those that don't know, our guy, what's his name, Michael Williams.
He played another.
Hey,
wait, hold on.
We gotta understand. Hold up.
Wait, time out. We
gotta talk about it. We gotta talk about that.
But that's a spoiler, though. That's a spoiler.
Okay,
that's a spoiler.
It's a spoiler. But the hell with it. The point I'm saying is this.
Yes, he is. He does play. He does
we need to talk about this.
He does play another homosexual. Yes.
Audience, we need to know this. Should black men, some of these actors that are established, should they, especially those, we're gonna say all, but should they still be playing these homosexual roles? This is his second one, maybe third. I don't know. But is that a problem with it? My question, is it a problem with black men? Because I've heard people say that black men shouldn't play these, what do they call? What is it? Oh, man, they say we shouldn't... demasculate ourselves as black men. And that Hollywood is trying to do this. Should black men, established actors especially, no longer take these roles? Or is it the art? That's my question. Because he's doing it again in this. I'm telling you.
So here's how I look at it, right?
Let me know.
Here's how I look at it. I think it's the actor's choice.
True that.
I think it's the actor's choice.
But is it doing something? Is Hollywood... Some people feel there's a conspiracy that Hollywood's doing something.
Yeah, because all of the major comedians had to dress up like women at some point in time and X, Y, and Z. I get that.
But hold on, I got a question. People say the black male, but is it something where it's a lot of just top actors? Because
it's the top actors.
Because John Travolta, he did it.
Yeah, people.
There's a
don't talk
lot
about
of
that.
top actors that did it, but people, us as minorities, we was like, oh, the black
because
man
because that's
shouldn't
what we
do this.
watch. We watch more. That's what we watch more than anything. So here's how I look at it. Right. I think there's a point to be made in a industry where we are not prevalent in that industry. Right. There's not a lot of us in the industry.
Yes.
And then the main ones that we talk about, we can always say, yo, he dressed up like a woman. He did this, he did that. So all of the main ones that are stars, the ones that we gravitate to, the ones that we see at some point in time, they dressed up as a woman, right? So I could understand from that standpoint how somebody might be like, well, yo, why we always got to dress up as women? What are they trying to do to the black man? When there's plenty of white actors who do the same thing, right?
So is it an insecurity amongst our society?
But it is though.
Yeah, that's what point I was gonna get at. Is it just us because of how we think about it?
But they're not wrong.
But listen,
they're not wrong though. That's the point.
No. What I'm saying is this: not saying they're wrong if the premises that people are trying to do it for a particular way. But what if it's just truthfully just creative? And a person embracing the existing society and want to show that as an element, and hold on, and feel that this particular actor, as great as he is, he can actually pull across this scene to the best.
Because there's a
visibility that's gonna
because there is a history in this country of how they view the black man. Mm-hmm. Right? There's a history, right? And what they do to us. So when you have such a small amount of black men in TV, in film, and these are the ones who ascend to, and then you look back and you say, yo, damn, he dressed up like a woman. He dressed up like a woman. He dressed up like a woman. What imagery is important? What message does that send? Right? Mm-hmm. I'm not arguing whether the message is good or bad. When we say white actors do it too, out of how many?
But there's more of them.
That's my point. If there's 1,000 white male actors and 20 of them dress up as women,
but what I'm saying, but 20
and
there's top,
and there's 100 black male actors, and you get the same amount.
But my question is this. Okay, my question is two-part. First one is, what is the number of top white actors that do it? And the second one is this. Does that not still fall on us as people to educate, and not even educate, to have the conversation with our people and our kids? Because when I say it goes other places, we say like this. Yo, if my son and my kids are growing up,
yep,
I'm explaining to them what's Hollywood is, what's acting, what's a job, what's this is, what sports is,
That's
everything
a
what
fact.
it is. What it is. So they're not getting lost and they're not looking at, oh my God, Michael Williams played the gay guy. Oh my God, he's with. No, my kids ain't getting lost that way.
No,
because
absolutely.
So don't a lot of the ownership come on how we actually educate and the conversation we have with our own kids.
How many of us
condition their mind
how many
for whatever it is?
How many of us are out there to do that though? How many of our
but don't we supposed to though?
No, we supposed to, and it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. And I'm playing devil's advocate here for those who feel like it does matter, right? Mm-hmm. I'm just saying I can understand why they feel like it matters, right? From their standpoint. Me personally, I know the world that my kids are going to grow up in, right? Mm-hmm. So even if, say, for example, I try and make sure I'm aware of things that were instilled in me that don't fit in the world we live in right now, right? I grew up a certain way, right? I grew up a certain way. You're supposed to have manners. You're supposed to have respect, right?
It's respect for elders.
Yup, all those kind of
things.
A lot of these kids don't have that, right?
Don't have it. They don't understand that.
And I'm not saying that doesn't fit for today. My point being is I know there's also some things that I grow up with that I may not necessarily do. Shit, when I was young, I used to get a beating all the time.
Martha.
You understand what I'm saying? Like
Martha had a belt called the Taste of Honey.
Whether it be
everybody in high school knew about this belt because I wore it to school.
You know what I'm saying? Whether it be my aunt, uncle, grandmother, mother, father, whatever it was, I know that I've got people around me who are going to discipline me if I get out of line.
Correct.
You understand what I'm saying?
Different community.
Yep.
And that wasn't just family members. That was the next door neighbor.
Right.
You outside, she tearing you up and sending you home, and you get another beating after
Right.
that.
So my point being is, do I automatically do the same thing? Do I turn around with my kids and do exactly the same thing that was acceptable then, but is not necessarily acceptable now? And when I say acceptable now, I'm not talking about a spanking. We ain't get spankings.
We got ass whipping.
You understand what I'm saying? All right. So what I'm saying
this
is
podcast has the explicit lyrics, content on it, so we gonna call it like it is.
Yeah, I mean, like when you see like people talk about like, yo, my mother beat me with extension cords, and my mother, you know what I'm saying, my father did this or that and the third. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Do I now bring that around to my kids? So my point being is, depending on who you are, because I'm not saying what's right and what's wrong. What I'm saying is depending on who you are, of the things in your life that made you who you are, right? And are there some things about yourself, right, that have been instilled in you that you don't necessarily want to instill in your own children?
Yes.
Right? And I think every parent feels that way in some shape or form, right? So you try not to steer them in that type of direction. So my point being is that yes, it's our responsibility to living in, and that people's choices are their choices. So somebody playing a black actor, playing a black male actor, playing somebody gay on TV, that's not, in today's age, that's not a big deal. But I think they also need to understand why people feel like, especially back in the day, why that was a big deal.
Okay, so I got a question for you, Steve.
Yeah.
On that note, oh the hell, I can't remember my password. That brings me somewhere different. So now on the topic of conversation with kids and what we're instilling in the kids.
Yep.
In today's society, in today's climate, there's a different challenge that we face as black men,
Yep.
Hispanic men, minorities,
Yep.
in the city, which is different from what a lot of other races face.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example. A few weeks ago, probably a month ago, probably to the day, a month ago, my youngest son comes to me
Yep.
and says to me, "Hey, Dad, remember so-and-so? I played football in high school. He was a kid that got murdered on the South End.
Yep.
Kid that got shot up."
Yep. No name.
I said, "Damn." So at this time, I had to have a conversation with my son. He wasn't 21 yet. His birthday just passed. He just turned 21. But at this time, I had a conversation with him. I said, "Hey, this is the time I need to talk to you about what you might start experiencing right now, which is a lot of your friends,
Yep.
classmates, people you grow with, people in your football, basketball teams, dying tragically through murder. You know what I'm saying? Getting locked up for murdering someone, but definitely dying through murders, car accidents or whatever, but definitely murders, that whole element, because this is where we come from as in the society where we're at currently." Mm-hmm. 2 days later, another friend died that he played sports with. Right after I had the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I had the conversation with him was the first reason to let him know that this will be somewhat of your norm. The second part was I wanted to make sure he didn't internalize it a particular way and shut down, because I've seen people that do that.
Yep.
And that's through people not just being murdered, being shot, every bit of that.
Yep.
And you already know my story, so whatever it is. So I wanted to make sure I had that conversation with him so that he was able to process this stuff and work through it and know how to grieve, but not fall into this mental depression, as we know sometimes a lot of our parents, siblings, and different cousins and friends
and
do.
You may not even recognize it.
And not even recognize it. That mental health that they don't even find out, because we're so much in like a battlefield. You know what I'm saying? That type of, war mentality. So let me finish.
Go ahead.
The point I'm getting at, so I had that conversation with him. Like I said, 2 days later, another friend got murdered. Mm-hmm. Fast forward 2 weeks later, my cousin, which is his second cousin, but damn near like big uncle to him, God rest his soul, feel good, he gets murdered.
Yep.
Which is just a couple weeks from now. It's like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was.
Yep.
He gets murdered. The week after he gets murdered, another one of his football players dies in a tragic car accident.
Mm-hmm.
4 people in the span of 4 weeks almost.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take the car accident portion out of it. There's 3 people that were actually murdered. Us as minorities, us as black men, this is what I think a lot of people don't understand this dynamic, or not dynamic, but what we are sometimes having to actually process, deal with, convey, reiterate, support, and teach our kids that races don't have to go through. A lot of races or cultures don't have to go through explaining to their child at a certain age that a lot of their peers might fall or be subjected to death via being murdered.
Yep.
And to have that conversation to make sure that our kids know how to study the scene, peep the scene, understand when it's time to move, man. This ain't feeling right here. I got to move to the left. I might not even go there because this seemed a little particular way. Oh man, my man died. I got to grieve, but at the same time, I can't get too far left. My next man died again, but I still got to keep it pushing. I still got to make it whatever, and still got to get it back to some social norm. It's like living with a weight that you got to carry, but you have to mentally make it light. And this is what we grew up doing. But now, we're as fathers, we have to have these conversations with our son to make sure that they understand how to handle this, and which is to some degree kind of fucked up.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Yes. Do you feel like you needed to have that conversation because your sons didn't have to grow up like you grew up? Or would you say that when you were younger, you wish somebody had that conversation with you?
Good question. All right, so let me say it this way. I'm going to answer it this way. I felt I had that conversation regardless.
Okay.
Regardless of how they grew up, because they don't have to. My kids, as you know, they have been able, our kids grew up different than we grew up.
Yep.
And that's what we strived, all the different chambers we went through, all the nonsense we did.
Yep.
We did that to make sure that our kids wouldn't have to live through those struggles, or they'll go through those chambers, as we call them, the 36 chambers, the woo. We do stuff to make sure they didn't go through that. So that part was why we did it. But the reality is that this is society. So the conversation that I had with him was based off of society. First and foremost, I had to have the conversation with him because you live in the United States today, with being a young black male, regardless of what you went through or your struggles, or you didn't have to grow up in the hood like your father did and do the things that your father did from all the knucklehead, whatever. You didn't have to do that, but you're still exposed because you're still a young kid that still indirectly grew up in the city, you went to the same boys club I went to, in the same project I went to.
Yep.
Because you're my son and you're gonna go there. So
do you feel like, I don't mean to cut you, and I can only speak for myself. I have had the similar conversations with my son, but I also understand that some of it is from a fear that because you didn't grow up how I grew up, I'm not sure you can handle it. So I have to make sure you good. So I got to make sure you good.
So you're right. You're right. So a part of it is to make sure he's good because he didn't grow up. But the other part is that I know people that grew up the same way we did grow up.
And still went through it.
That still went through it. That's still stuck. I know people that are still kind of caught up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Caught up in this because of people that they lost, the things they went through, and how they grieved. They're still kind of wrapped in it. So it was more or less not, hey, you didn't grow up where I grew up. It was more or less, let's baseline this. I don't care where you grew up at.
Yep.
Understand when these things happen, this is society. Whether you grew up in the mud or grew up in the dirt and had to get it from there, or you grew up in this situation, you're connected with these people that it still might happen, and this is how you have to handle it. And to your second part is, No, we didn't have nobody because, as you know,
Right.
a lot of us, we are our fathers.
Yeah.
We taught each other.
Yeah.
We come from that generation. We those 90 babies.
Yeah.
Well, not the 90s babies, but the 70, 80 babies
Yeah.
that grew up in the 90s that really blazed our own trail, and we became the fathers that we didn't have.
Right.
So we developed that whole blueprint of whatever we're going to do. So part of it was, hey, nobody had this conversation with me. And not that it would have made a difference, because it might not have, because I think our era was different than our parents and grandparents' era. They wasn't shooting each other to this degree.
Yeah,
Our era was that era where it was a whole bunch of this genocide stuff. So I don't even think that, I can't even say that they could have even had that conversation. Another adult male probably wouldn't even be able to have a conversation with us at that time that probably to some degree made sense, because y'all don't get it, because this ain't happening in y'all era. It happened in our era,
Right.
so we can
So
explain
we
it to our
understand it.
kids.
So
we
we
can say,
understand it more.
we get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's
we
a
went through
fact.
that era of drive-by shootings and stick-up kids and all that stuff here. So what y'all going through, we know. Our parents didn't go through that era, so they can't relate the same way. So if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And I think there's, I was asking about the fear question, because I think that, like to your point, we're sort of a generation that raised by strong black women, but for the most part had to almost, raised each other in terms of the freedom that we had, right? Mothers working, stuff like that. And, we have a lot of freedom to get into a lot of bullshit. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And those experiences shape you. So, for example, being in a situation where, you could feel like, all right, this ain't right. But that come from experience.
Yeah.
That ain't just a sixth sense that you have. It come from experience, right? So for me, it's always, well, my kids that don't experience that, they're not around that to experience it. So I worry about them in those type of situations. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when things like this happen, I do want to have that conversation with them to say like, yo, listen, this is how things were for me. And this is how I view certain situations. I want you to view the situations in the same manner. You may not make the same decisions necessarily, but I want you to be able to know how to conduct yourself at a house party, for example, right? I'm in a house party. It's packed. Something pop off. What do I do?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Do I run with the crowd? What do I do? You get what I'm saying? Little things that that's just a small example that really don't mean anything. But my point being, is that like there's experiences that we come up with. Nothing is worth somebody pull a gun on you. It ain't worth fighting over. Nothing that you got on ain't worth dying for.
What you made me think of something, and we probably gonna set this up for another episode.
Yeah, that's a fact.
We definitely got to talk about being comfortable in your own skin. You know what I'm saying?
Be you, they'll adjust.
Being you. You know what I'm saying? Say it again. Be you, they adjust.
Yeah.
Did you say that was somebody's
adjust.
clothing line?
I saw I've seen a t-shirt online. I'm not sure if it's somebody clothing line, but I like the saying.
Okay.
So I've been using it.
So
be you and they'll adjust.
So
that's a
that
fact.
right there. Now, we rocking now, baby.